Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca and I'm an Agile lead with 20 years of coaching and leadership experience behind me. As an Agile leader, I know that it's the softer skills that we sometimes neglect in our personal development. So this is the first in a series of videos that focuses on emotional agility. So in this video, I'll look at managing stress. Something I think that we can all relate to in our constantly changing, increasingly complex working lives. In the Understanding Emotional Intelligence workshop that I've run before, there's a section called self-management, also known as self-regulation. So self-regulation is about managing our emotions and ourselves effectively. It involves controlling unproductive behaviours that don't really get us anywhere. And by understanding the link between your interpretation of an event and your responses to it, you can choose an alternative way to feel. I look at the dynamics of emotion management. So there are 3 key points to this. Number 1 is the activating event, whether it be real, imagined, or conflated in some way. Second is belief interpretation, so the rational or irrational response to that event. And third are consequences of reactions. So what feelings does it evoke? What behaviour does it lead to? In the workshop, I dive into the biological impulses that drive our emotions, and I talk about the skills indicators to look for when exploring our own experience of self-regulation. For example, having the ability to identify shifts in our psychological arousal, being able to relax in pressured situations, to act productively in anxiety-arousing situations, and being able to reflect on negative feelings without being distressed. So what I generally do is have participants reflect on questions like, can I manage my anxiety in times of change? Can I manage stress? So for this little video, I thought I'd focus specifically on stress management as part of the whole self-regulation portion of my approach to understanding emotional intelligence. Honestly, I've struggled with this myself. Personally, I've always prided myself on being passionate and dedicated and caring deeply for the teams I work with and the people that I manage. But this has before turned into an inability to switch off and a loss of perspective. And when that happens, I've become completely oblivious to just how stressful my work life is. And this has manifested itself into perhaps me not being an effective leader and really not doing my best work because I've failed to recognise that I'm overwhelmed in a certain situation. But I think it's worth us looking at and making the distinction between good stress and bad stress. So good stress is, the challenges that mobilise and motivate us, that drive us, that get us out of bed in the morning. And bad stress, these are the threats that overwhelm, paralyse and demoralise us. So for me, good stress, working in technology consultancies, it would be new business pitches. So when we get an RFP, we've got a brand new client, we might have a massive budget, it might seem quite overwhelming getting this new RFP that, it might not be super clear what the client wants, but we've got to interpret what we feel their problem is, look at the right solution hypothesis and create the right strategy for meeting that problem. And for me, that's really exciting. It really motivates me, that challenge and bringing the team together. But for other people, that could be an absolute nightmare of high-pressured client presentations, of late nights, of looming deadlines, and the possibility of not winning, a multi-million-dollar piece of work. So there are different things, of course, that drive us, and it's good for us to individually identify the good stressors and to make a clear distinction between those and the bad stressors within our professional lives. So, even though I've found working in the UAE over the past 5 years to be a super satisfying experience, it is also stressful. I work longer hours than I ever did in London, and there are potentially a lot of challenges for people who are coming as expats to this wonderful country. So, things and challenges like, I suppose, cultural differences, environmental differences. They might be working in operational and organisational structures which differ very much from the ones they've worked in professionally in their countries of origin. And these things can have an impact on us, even though we might not realise it. Now, some UK research looked at the British workforce and identified some major stressors, easy for me to say, stressors. Um, and you may have experienced some or all of these in the past and are likely experiencing one or more of them now. I truly hope not. But these, are fairly obvious, I think, to most people, but even when we're not aware of them at the time sometimes. So too much work, deadline pressures, unsupportive work environment, incompetent senior managers, poor internal communications, bullying and intimidation, and problems maintaining an acceptable work-life balance. I found the last one, in the environments that I've worked in and the work that I've done, that seems to be the major problem that most people experience. So I think in times of stress or potential stress, there are some warning signs that your body may be giving you, such as excessive tiredness, disturbed sleep, loss of temper, and headaches. And you might not think that you're stressed at the time, but your body could really be telling you otherwise. So, recognizing stress in others. Now, these signs that I'm going to pop up here are, of course, part of your self-regulation and self-awareness. You should be mindful of recognizing these in yourself. But I wanted to put in here a section on recognizing stress in others because I think we should all be very mindful of how our colleagues are coping when the pressure is on. And I'm sure most people are. But I think fostering an environment of security, support, and safety is so important in our professional working lives. And a little bit more so, I think, when we work in an expat hub like the UAE. So we're likely to be away from our families, away from our support networks, and the connections we make in our professional life become even more important to us. So, as well as being self-aware, we should be mindful of spotting these signs in others. These things may seem completely obvious, but when we're all motoring along at high speed in a pressured environment, we sometimes don't have the time or the perspective to notice when our colleagues are struggling. I've worked in some great environments actually, and some not so great environments, where companies emphasize the importance of employee well-being, but pay lip service to it, especially when it gets to, let's say, Q4 and we're down on the revenue target for the year and all pressure's on. But I think it's important for us to be mindful of this in ourselves and in others. And if you feel that you're working in an environment where management or the organisation as a whole is not aware, I think it's the voice of the team, of the people, to work together to support each other, but to push that up, to make sure that everyone is aware that it's not okay for, I suppose, you not to feel supported and secure in an environment, especially when the pressure is on. So what positive activities do you do to switch off? So I think the ability to completely switch off, to leave work pressures at the door and to fully disconnect is something I've had to work hard at doing over my career. It's a learned thing for me, really. And I think a lot of people struggle with this. I think definitely through my 20s and early 30s, I struggled. And I think whatever you do outside of work to try and disconnect, it's worth asking yourself as well, is it a positive activity? it's an easy thing to kind of pull up as an example for expats, but excessive brunching probably isn't a totally positive activity for switching off. And I think the other thing to do is look at the activities you do in your personal life and see if you are truly disconnecting your mind and relaxing your body. I think for me, in my late 20s and 30s, it was, I could switch off, but it was traveling, it was rock climbing, it was hiking. But I had to leave work to do that. And it helped that I was a self employed consultant and I could hop off abroad for a month between stressful, 3-6 month projects. I'm in my 40s now and I'm attempting to adult a bit more responsibly. So it's more like yoga and music and podcasts and cooking for me. Unfortunately, we can't have pets in our building, and I work too much to really give them the time that they need. But I know a lot of people get a lot of satisfaction from their dogs and cats. But whatever it is for you, make sure that you're making time for that activity and you're making time for yourself, even more so when the heat is on and the work seems overwhelming. It's in these times when we neglect ourselves the most, but it's in these times when we should benefit the most from just switching off our minds and relaxing our bodies. Thanks to everyone for taking the time to watch this little video. I do hope you found it useful. Please like, share or subscribe to my channel where I'll be posting other videos in this series on emotional agility. I always appreciate comments and feedback. Please take care of yourselves and your colleagues. Thank you.